Greetings and welcome back to Switched to Linux. As you may have guessed, I am not doing a live show today, Wednesday the 19th, I believe. I'm recording this a day early, mostly because I knew I was going to be busy on Wednesday. Also, if you're keeping up with the live streams, next Wednesday I will probably also not be streaming, and I will know that hopefully by Sunday. So check my Patreon page on Monday. I'm not vanishing anywhere. I just happen to be doing a couple potential trips, couple potential business things, and I need to travel for those. And because the whole travel thing going on, I just can't always do the live streams. But I try to do them all the time. Also, Friday's live stream this week will potentially be at an unusual time. I will be doing a live stream. It might be 7, it might be 8, it might be 9. It will not be any later than 9, and I'm thinking 9 is not even going to work. I'm thinking 8 is what it's going to be. So if you're following my my live streams, obviously none today, Wednesday, the 18th, and I keep on missing that. 19th. Wednesday's the 19th. I'm recording this on the 18th. And then Friday's going to be an unusual time, so I'm going to post that up as soon as I know when that time is going to be. I'll go ahead and post that up so you can follow the schedule. Sunday, I believe Sunday will be a normal tinfoil hat time at 9 o'clock, and then the following week, I have no idea what the following week's going to look like as of yet. But for today's video, as you may have guessed from the title, we are talking about Microsoft ramping up planned obsolescence. This was an interesting article, and this is still fairly small at this point in time, but it is worthy of consideration. So we did do a Tinfoil Hat Time Live a few months back, and that Tinfoil Hat Time Live had to do with, a whole lot with planned obsolescence and looking at a lot of the challenges and a lot of the different issues with it. And of course, planned obsolescence is a major thing, because what it basically means is that a company is directing its products or its services in such a way to induce the consumer to purchase a new edition or a new copy or a new product well before the thing could have died out. So what is going on and what has going on? Well, first we're going to go ahead and bring you up to speed on an article from last year, or it was last year, in fact. I remember this came out quite a while ago. I'm not even sure I had Switch to Linux launched at this point in time, but I remember reading this article. There was this Windows 10 controversy, and what was happening is Windows, if you happen to get a newer processor, you could not run an older version of Windows on it. You had to run Windows 10. So this is one of those things kind of forcing people on to Windows 10. Is, particularly those folks doing custom PC builds. If you wanted to use the latest processor, you could not go back and use Windows 7, despite you could still purchase Windows 7 for a few months as of this article. I believe Windows 7, you stopped being able to purchase it. I want to say it was October 2006. You'll see this article is January 2006. And this came out because, a lot of your PC hobbyists will want to upgrade their computers. They'll be like, hey, I have a Windows 7 key. I can use this. It's OEM key, whatever. I can use this. I can upgrade my processor. No, you couldn't upgrade your processor. If you got certain new processors, you were forced to abandon your Windows 7 and upgrade to a Windows 10 if you wanted to utilize those new processors. So this is one of those first pushes that was pushing people towards Windows 10 as if forced upgrades wasn't enough. They were doing this. But what had actually came out in an article, this article came out yesterday, I first saw it on ArsTechnica, that Windows 10 support could end early on some Intel systems. And what I wanted to do is go back and have a look at Microsoft's site. So here is kind of their fact sheet on Windows lifecycle. So you can see here, this is the operating system, the latest update, the latest mainstream support, and the end of extended support. So you'll see that Windows 7, if you're still running that, you have extended support to 2020. This means that you will get security patches but not feature upgrades. Windows 8, you'll of course get those security patches up until January 23, new feature updates will still be until January, the coming up January, and 6 or so months from now. But then, of course, Windows 10, they're like, October 25, and that's probably, I don't know why they didn't do the NA, but yeah, they're like, yeah, for all eternity. Of course, the reason they picked this date, October 14th, 2025, is because Windows traditionally has had a 5+5, meaning that when you purchase a computer that has Windows on it, you would get 5 years of mainstream support and then 5 years of extra support. So if that computer physically lasted you 10 years, you were secure on that computer for 10 years. And the sad reality is, back in that time, computers wouldn't last 10 years. The tech was moving so fast. When I first got into computers in the late 90s, you'd buy a computer, and I bought a computer, and fortunately it was like a custom-built computer, so I was able to keep it alive for quite a bit longer merely by buying the newer components and buying new components. Well, it wasn't only 3 or 4 years later that the thing was just so old, it was more worth my time to just go buy a new computer. And so I did, and it was just so much better. And then from there, 4 years later, again, the computer was just so old and so slow, you just bought a new computer. So you would never really extend that 5+5. It was like, basically that 5+5 guaranteed that computer would last until the computer would completely fall over and die. But nowadays, computer tech does not move so fast that you can have a 10-year-old computer and it's just fine. And I think back to the Windows 7 computer that I still have running in my office. I bought the thing, I want to say I bought it in 2010, so it's 7 years old, and frankly, it still runs as well as it did the first day I bought it out of the box. Mostly because I know what I'm doing on the internet. I know what I'm doing on computers. I know how to clean it. I know how to do CCleaner. I don't install extra applications or crap on it. I make sure the thing stays clean, and so the thing runs great. And actually, even that computer, I've replaced a lot of components that have worn out. I think I've replaced 2 processor fans in that. I've replaced the keyboard once. I think I've replaced most of the shelling around it, including the LCD. The thing's been essentially replaced, and it's going to have the extended support for another I guess about 2.5 years for now. And so I have another 2.5 years. And I have every confidence I can going to keep that thing going until that support ends in 2020. And then at that point in time, we figure out what to do with it from then. Do I just reincarnate that thing into Linux or whatever else, or upgrade it to Windows 10? Yeah, right. But basically what happens with the Windows model is you used to have 10 years, but back then computers wouldn't last more than 3 or 4 years. Nowadays, computer tech has moved so much, and one of the challenges with the desktop computer market and even the laptop computer market is people aren't buying computers enough to satisfy the computer companies, and desktop sales and laptop sales are actually declining. And it's not because of the tablets are taking over. That trend came, everyone said it, and then it died. And I knew it was going to die because there was no way a tablet was going to take over for a computer. And, and in reality, that's just kind of what happened, and it ended up being true. But what's happening now is that computers are just lasting so long and so long and so long. So while you used to be able to get 10 years out of active support out of a computer would not last 10 years. There was it wasn't even planned obsolescence. It was just obsolescence. Nowadays, with the computers being so good, now the companies have to plan for obsolescence. So with this article coming up today that we're going to look at, Microsoft is pushing that planned obsolescence so far that even a computer that otherwise wouldn't be dead dies. You can't use the Windows on it as you know it. And so we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the solutions. But before I wanted to get to that, you'll see here that there's 2 double asterisks next to your Windows 10 support. So of course that means that there's fine print. So let's go ahead and have a look at that fine print. Bump this up so you can actually see it. Let me go a little bit higher there for all y'all following along here. So this applies to Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Home and Home. Okay, my house, I guess, is going to expire 2025. I have identified the time of the rapture, folks. It's 2025. Okay. Your Pro, your Enterprise editions, your Windows 10 Mobile and Mobile Enterprise have no extended support period. Yeah, those are always been planned obsolescence. Okay, so all Windows 10 editions are managed via Windows as a Service model. So the Windows as a Service model is before you'd buy a computer, and you'd either buy the Windows or you'd buy the upgrade to Windows, or you'd buy the computer with Windows pre-installed. Well, if you bought the computer with Windows pre-installed, all that meant that the cost of the Windows license was built in to the computer, and the manufacturer had paid for that. And so you used to have a model where Microsoft would get the license fee. They would basically still be selling the operating system. And even Windows 10 Pro is still much the same way. It's still, in a way, purchased. The Home Edition is the free, but the Home Edition is going to be dying. We're going to see within a few months Windows 10S take over the Windows 10 Home, so that you will either have a lockdown, complete walled garden system that you can't change the search engine, you can't change the default browser, you can't change anything under the core, and you can't edit host files or system files. You cannot use that computer as a computer was intended to be used. And that is a huge, horrible thing. If you watch my Tinfoil Hat Time on Sunday, you'll hear about why. Because they're locking down now even your desktop computer, Windows 10 computer, they're locking that down to the point where you cannot get in there and utilize it anymore. And that's a huge problem. But you can pay them extra money to upgrade to Pro to do all that stuff. So it's not like a total loss. I mean, if I had the option to pay an extra $50 to unlock the root access to my iPhone, I'd probably do it, except I'm not paying a Chinese hacker to do it. That's kind of that difference where I draw the line. But now with this Windows as a Service model, it means that they're just giving out the Windows, and now instead of buying the product Windows, now Windows product is a service. And every time the operating system is a service, you are the product. You are being bought and sold. All this system does is collects all of your data, uses all of your data, and ships us off to all of your data. But Microsoft's taking that a little further. But let's proceed. Updates are cumulative, with each update built on on all of the updates that preceded it. Okay, a device needs to install the latest update to remain supported. So you have to have the previous update to remain supported. That's important. Updates may include new features, as if I want them. Like new features, like our brand new fixed OneDrive that doesn't work. Huh? Yeah, they did that last week. Fixes, security and non-security, and a combination of both. Not all features in an update will work on all devices. A device may not be able to receive updates if the device hardware is incompatible, lacking current drivers, or otherwise outside the OEM support period. Okay, that's that little clincher right there. Let me see. That sentence right there that is currently highlighted in my Linux Mint green is the importance. Of course, there's availability, network region, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the reason this is important is because Windows 10, which forces updates that you cannot reject, will force drivers onto your system that do not work or that break, and it can remove software which would include drivers. Okay, and if the driver is not there, the update is not supported, and you will no longer get any updates, including security updates. And this means that if Windows revokes a driver for a device, it is no longer supported. And that's just what they did. So there is a series of processors called Atom processors that are Intel processors for very low power devices. And I thought my Lenovo might have one of those, but it actually has a Celeron. All of the other computers in the class with my Lenovo that's kind of behind me there are actually run Atom processors. That one does not, which is why it has a shorter battery life. But it also runs really well. So basically what happens is Microsoft, while they used to have this 5+5 support model, what was happening is if you had any of these 4 Atom processors, Z2760, 2520, 2560, 2580, the drivers are not, Microsoft revoked the drivers apparently. These cannot get the creators update. So these processors cannot get not only just feature upgrades, not only the latest updates, but no security updates either. Basically saying that these devices are now no longer supported. These devices are only 3 and 4 years old. I think they were first introduced maybe around 2000, let's see if I can find the date. So I think they were originally announced 2012, sold 2013 to 2014. It's now mid-2017. That this device is only 3 or 4 years old. Yet Microsoft pushed an update that broke these things that they will no longer get not only mainstream support, but they also will not get any extended support. So these devices are now inherently insecure, meaning you cannot get on the network with these without them being potentially compromised. You have to get rid of the device and get a new one. Planned obsolescence. Their objective is, and I believe that what they're going to be doing down the road, is their objective is going to be to brick out more devices, slowly planned obsolescence out maybe the lower end devices or the devices that have smaller user bases, probably to, and I would say that they would focus on those so that they could make sure that they're not really getting a lot of negativity for mainstream. Like if they knocked out a major device or a very popular one, then that might that might be a problem. But they could also brick out laptops from certain companies, which means if a company does not want to fully endorse Microsoft's model, they can cut them out. That's kind of what this is. Before you bought the computer, you had a working lifetime of the operating system on the computer. Nowadays, that is no longer the case. So Microsoft is ramping up planned obsolescence, focusing on starting with these processors, but any driver, any system that it cannot be compatible with or will not be compatible with, you will get a little message that says Windows 10 is no longer supported on this PC. Uninstall this app now because it isn't compatible with Windows 10. And that app is the entire update. So Microsoft is pushing planned obsolescence, hopefully so that you get the chance to, you'd get the chance to go ahead and, have to buy a new computer, because that's kind of what they want you to do anyway. Just keep buying them new computers. Oh boy, what can we do about this? This is why I'm moving away from Microsoft products as a whole. I don't really want to be using Microsoft products down the road. And for me, what I'm doing, basically, I'm looking at Linux systems. So if you do have one of these Atom processors here that, basically low-end computers, or these were those 2-in-1 things that came out, start looking around for Linux distros. Can't guarantee any of them, but I'll give you some to look at. One of those that I would use if you're being limited out of your operating system by this one, Peppermint OS is probably going to work for you. I love Peppermint OS. It's what I run on this little computer that's behind me, closed up on the desk back there. It's just a little netbook computer. It runs awesome, XFCE based. It runs on only like 200 megabytes of RAM, so it's a really nice system. So I would definitely look at using Peppermint OS. Other ones that people would look at would be Linux Lite. I think it's Lite. So Linux Lite OS is linuxliteos.com. So this guy here, another XFCE desktop operation. So this guy here, you can get this one, and it'll work just fine. And Linux is not going to revoke your ability to install updates or anything else. And so we get that one. Also, Xubuntu would fall under the same category. So if you let's see, xubuntu.org would be another one. So you could go ahead and use these. Again, I haven't tested all these on those particular Atom processors. Double check what the processor is, and if you do have one of those, look into which Linux distros you can use. But I'll tell you, if Microsoft is blocking your system, telling you can't get this update because blah, 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 or if you're just sick of what they're doing with all the data collection, with all of the crap that they're pulling in their operating system, switch to Linux, people. Switch to Linux. And I'll tell you, you can do something as simple as get a little USB drive, as long as it's a USB 3 drive. You can install Linux on this guy, keep Windows on your existing computer, boot off of this thing right here, and I have lots of videos that tell you how to do that. Boot off of these, learn how to use Linux without even compromising your main operating system. Learn how to do that, and, because Linux is not going to lock you out. They're not going to get to the point where it's like, you have to have this update, and we're going to keep annoying you to install the update, but the update's not really going to work, so you may as well just go buy a new computer. Linux is not going to do that. You're going to have a very good operating system. You're going to be able to accomplish your work. And I got news, if you're hanging on to one of those computers that has those, your primary purpose of your computer is probably surfing the web, doing some email stuff, some basic functions. Linux is going to support all of those just fine. So, sorry I don't have the comments today, man. I'd last this show for a good hour if I had the comments running here to read, but I don't. Go ahead and leave me some comments down below. But regardless, thanks for watching, everybody. Again, if you do want to help support what we're doing at Switch to Linux, you can find me at patreon.com/TomM. And you can also use the Amazon links that will be below. Stay tuned to the channel for this week's stream on Friday. We will be doing a stream on Friday. I'm planning to anyway. And it will just be at an unusual time. I don't know exactly when yet. And next week, take a look at the Patreon page for next week. I'll try and post a schedule next Monday. And I should hopefully know if I'm streaming on Wednesday or not next week. Not sure. So regardless, thanks for watching, and watch out for that Microsoft. They're getting you planned obsolescence, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.